rethinking concrete choices on a tight timeline. Our speaker is Martinez. He began his career in the concrete industry at Grneco LTA, working as a materials technician in the concrete laboratory before developing as a concrete specialist. Contributed to many civil projects such as the Soccer City, Marti, Medupi Power Stations, Shishan, South Mine, gaining extensive experience in mixed design, badging, grouting, structural repairs. He later joined Stephanie Stocks as a concrete specialist, overseeing the civil, small works, and geotechnical divisions. His work included notable projects such as Kulisi Power Station, Shishan Life of Mine, Senqua River Bridge, and Sasol facilities in Sakuna, Mozambique, as well as numerous smaller industrial and infrastructure projects. Since 2015, Martinez has served as a technical manager at Meteor Mixed Concrete. He leads the technical operations and ensures the delivery of high-quality concrete across a wide range of projects. His hands-on approach and deep technical knowledge continue to drive excellence in every aspect of his work. That said, Martinez, thank you for joining us in the afternoon and sharing with us and give us a bit more background on Ready Mix Concrete. Give the floor to you.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to share here, so that is, yeah, okay, cool. Can everybody see that? I assume so, Natasha?
Yes, yeah, I can see it on my side.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so Natasha asked me to present on challenges we have in Ready Mix with customers or with projects, and I've thought about it hard. Where do you start to guide people in a direction without offending people? And I think the one common thing is everybody's in it for the money and we want quick turnaround. And pricing versus performance that stood out as a topic that one can actually say quite a bit, but it goes quicker than I thought. So let's start here by saying 9 out of 10 times, if a project's being priced, the QS ask for pricing, and what you ask for is the cheapest because you want to win the job. Then a couple of months, 6 months to a year later, you start the project and everything goes well. After the first pour, you get a call from the project manager and he reckons, yo, meneer, your concrete is substandard. So, meneer, what do you mean? No, we can't strip our formwork. Yes, but you did ask for the cheapest concrete. So the cheapest concrete is not necessarily the quickest concrete. And then you have to explain, but it's not, it's what you pay, what you get, you get what you pay for. Is different areas, different extenders, different cements come at a cost. So this poses the question in my mind, is should we not be more mindful when we price and make our expectations quite clear to the ready mix supplier? And the same goes to the steel guys, the formwork. What is your expectations? You know, if we know we can supply. And then I started running my mind through this, and a practical application for the married people. You go out to the shops, wife asks for a chocolate or husband asks for chocolate. You bring a specific chocolate, but the expectation was something else. They're both going to work. They're going to sit on their hips for some time, but it's both chocolate. And when you start going into concrete, you ask for concrete, you're going to get concrete. The thing is with the concrete, we only see the result 7 days later. So then the whole argument starts. Is it bad quality? Is it good quality? What is the cement blend right? Is it not right? Yes, we priced it. That's what you asked for, near contractor or customer. But we still guarantee the 28-day strength, what you asked for at tender stage. And I think like most other ready mix suppliers, everybody will stand by their product and guarantee their 28-day strength. It's very, very little that you get a request from a customer saying, listen, we need 60% of the characteristic strength to strip. And this will be a quick turnaround project, and we need to turn around formwork because that's quite expensive. And we need to go up we need to finish the project in 6 months, not 18 months like we planned initially. So your expectation is not clear. So what I'm saying is expectation is everything. If you expect a fast setting concrete or concrete that gains strength quickly, you will be it will be required for you to tell us as a ready-mix supplier what you need. Then we can price accordingly. Otherwise, you're just going to get run-of-the-mill, don't want to say cheap and nasty concrete, but you're going to get a good quality concrete that is the most cost-effective concrete that we can supply to win the job. Like you guys have to tender on a job, or the customer has to tender for a job, our customers being the contractor has to tender. Everybody needs to be competitive, and unfortunately, being competitive is not always quick, but you will get the job done. When you then look at the cements that we are able to use, there is 27 families that we can as a ready-mix supplier make use of to supply concrete. And remember, every component in that cement or cement blend comes at a cost. Depends where in the country you are. If you're close to a slag source, slag might be cheaper, fly ash might be cheaper. If you're closer to a cement factory, also that plays a role in the transport. So there's 27 types of cement that you can start off with to blend. And according to SANS 50197, there's a band. If we take the worst case scenarios, a SEM2 or a SEM4B, you can blend up to 35 or more than that. I think it's it's up to 50% extender in a BM mix, which then says there's around about 945 blends that any ready-mix guy or any producer can come up with. Problem with this is each of those blends will have its own strength gain characteristics, and that determines the rate that you can build at. A SEM2A, we can blend anything from 6 to 20%. That is typically the cement that we would get. And as a ready-mix supplier, you would extend further to produce the most cost-effective concrete on the market, which is technically sound. And with every percent of ash or fly ash or lime extender, you change the rate of gain, and it influences what is possible on site. The same with the Bs, you can go up to a 35% extender, and if you go into a B mix, you can even complicate this more because you can add more than one extender into that cement. And different extenders have different strength gain characteristics, and it reacts different with different cements, all to do with the chemistry in the background. But bottom line is, if we as a ready-mix supplier know what is the target and what is the expectation, we can do our best to suffice in that expectation and ensure we have a happy customer and a project that is successful without any hiccups. Different blends will achieve different strengths at different ages. In short, I've just tried to summarize this. If you do a 65-35 blend with fly ash, I'm not even touching on slagman currently, but you can range anything from 62 to 78% at 7 days. Now, if you as a contractor plan your life that you need 70% on 7 days, and you've priced for the cheapest concrete and you get 60%, you will not be happy with the ready-mix supplier. although there will be nothing wrong with the concrete will meet the strength, because none of the ready-mix suppliers are in the market to supply poor quality concrete, because reputational damage is just far too great. Nobody's in it to kill people. We will design to meet strength. For a 70-30 blend, the same thing. The band is quite big, between 65 and 72% can be generally be achieved at 7 days. And that is of your design strength, not necessarily your characteristic strength, but of your design strength. So yeah, it's quite a handy tool to predict where you're going in future. Then on fly ash, it's quite difficult if you do not get your ash from one source. We at Metair try to only use one source. It makes life a lot easier to manage and control performance. So in a typically the performance, the early strength performance between a class N and a class S is also vastly different. The typical historical history that we get, if you use a class N, you can sit around about 60%, 65% at 7 days, and they call it old unclassified class S classes, you sit around about 75% at 7 days. But we design accordingly to guarantee our 28-day strengths. And all the history and all the literature shows that the durability is not compromised with fly ash. It actually increases your durability. So still not a bad quality concrete, but might not achieve your expectation or meet your expectation, and we have an unhappy customer, even though the concrete is of good quality. And then I have to say, there's a bit tongue-in-cheek. In all of this, the cement producers are, I would say, the fortunate guys, and they always say they see nothing on their side. But what the cement producers, in my opinion, don't fully understand, a small change on their side, even if it's a cold source or they do trial on a grinding aid, influence what happens in the ready-mix operations, which then obviously influence what happens at a customer, and so forth and so forth. But we try and manage that, and we take ownership for that performance. That's why we have safety margins in place. But yet, the concrete is not of a bad quality, even though concrete's 9 out of 10 times being blamed for poor quality if it doesn't meet the expectation initially. So we did a field study, and this is courtesy of Giselle in Durban. We ran comparisons between a SEM 3A and a SEM 4 BM, which we blended, or was blended at the same cement water ratios was used, and I think the extension on this, if I remember correctly, was about 50-50 clinker versus extended. Both target strengths of 30 MPa. So all good. We're going to supply a 30 MPa concrete to the customer, and 7-day results come in. The customer who got the SEM 3A is very unhappy because he cannot strip his formwork. He's not allowed to do so by the engineer. He phones us, very, very poor quality concrete, very unhappy, and you have to end up coring the structure, extra cost to the customer, extra cost to the ready-mix supplier, possible delay to the client, and yet if we go further, you'll see nothing wrong with the concrete. It is just the nature of the strength gain. Customer who got the SEM 4, extremely happy. He achieves his 70% or 66%. He can strip his formwork. He almost achieves characteristic strength at 7 days. Now, this is good quality concrete. Customer is very happy, and you can carry on with life. When we get to 28-day strength, the customer who got the SEM 3 definitely got us a concrete that is outperforming the CM4 by, it's a 3 MPa outperformance, but it's still not bad. It still meets the 30 MPa characteristic strength. Yet this concrete was blamed, and the ready-mix supplier was blamed that we supply poor quality concrete, in contrary to the belief. You can see there's on the screen that there's a massive difference in the 7 to 28 day performance on both these concretes. And this brings me to my next point, is the durability of these two concretes that we compared. If you look at the OPI values on the slag, you got your 10.36 versus the fly ash version, 10.45. This is both regarded as excellent values. It's very, very good values, even in terms of the Kotter spec. I'll show another slide of that. This concrete is excellent. In terms of sorptivity, also very similar performance, very dense concrete, it doesn't absorb much. And the interesting fact, but I think most of us do know this, that slag is beneficial where you have chloride exposure. The higher the value is, yeah, the worse it is in a chloride environment. So achieving the 0.26 versus 0.044, it shows that you actually have a superior concrete when you're exposed to chlorides. But the interesting thing is when you compare this to extract the limits in Kotter, you exceed the requirements exponentially, as this is the OPI is a lock value. You have a very dense concrete. You don't have the ingress of deleterious materials through the pores. Very dense concrete, you achieve in excess of 10, and the range for the worst exposure here is, I think, a 9.8. Showing nothing wrong with the concrete you achieved, but initially you were blamed as a supplier. You supply poor quality concrete, and it actually shows the poor quality concrete here is actually a excellent quality concrete, just didn't meet your expectation initially. In terms of the chloride limits, you can see limits here ranging from a low exposure with cover to from a 1.2 going to bad conditions 2.15. Slag values are slightly different, but the 0.25s and the 0.4s are still way under the limits that's been specified. Proving the point again, it's an excellent concrete, nothing wrong with the quality of the concrete. Your expectation as a customer was not met initially because you could not strip your formwork. It's costing money. It's not what was planned on. And yet concrete is of a good quality. So I think it's something to bear in mind that it's not always a bad quality concrete if it does not meet your early strength expectations. So what we obviously proven in this field study is that both the characteristic strengths were met at 28 days. Durability generally exceeds the expectation. Both concretes might not meet the expectation on site, as we would need to turn the formwork around. And I think this is a big thing for the contractors, that we need to build quickly. We don't have time to wait. So if you want to build and you need 25 MPa or 20 MPa to strip your form and you get your 15 MPa, you will think it is end of the world and that those projects are not gonna stick to the timelines. But if the buyer initially made the expectations clear, the ready-mix supplier can supply and blend out of that 945 blends. A mixed design can be composed that will meet your expectation, and you won't face the challenge of not turning around formwork, not turning around support work, and project can be on time. So the big things that influence this is the availability of fly ash. 18 months ago, Eskom didn't burn enough coal, and fly ash was a major issue. So in that case, if you were up in Gauteng, we were fortunate to get our hands on some slag, and we could carry on with operations. But the Slagman concretes, like you could see, did not meet early age strengths. But in many of the occasions, we found that we did not know as a supplier that we need to meet certain early strengths for the to strip. Eskom's recovered, and we most like 9 out of 10 times now know what the customers want. It was particularly bad last year or the beginning of this year, where especially winter, the slag did not meet the requirements. Currently, slagman's a problem again, because of the challenges Mittal themselves facing. So it's a constant battle to get raw materials and compile mixes that meets the end user's requirement and meet the expectation and not disappoint. Yeah, so it's a constant challenge from our side to ensure that we deliver concrete that meets the expectation. Aggregates is also critical in this. There's definitely certain aggregates up, especially around Gauteng, Northern Cape, that benefit your early strength. So you can use slagment with the specific aggregates that will then ensure that you achieve your early strengths. So it's very critical that as a ready-mix supplier, we understand your requirement as a customer to design and use the correct materials to achieve the expectations or to meet the expectations. Most important in all of this is the cementitious material available that dictates the performance. So if the supplier, which is us, ready-mix operators, know exactly what is required on the project, we can, to our best, design to meet the requirement and avoid the disappointment. So in conclusion, this, as a summary, I would say, you as a customer must understand what you're trying to achieve before you start. And by doing that, we as a team can then know and design and have the same goal as a target to achieve. So we need to, if it's a request basically from our side as ready-mix operators, share as much info when you ask for concrete pricing. Drawing notes, project specifications, make it clear to the rep, the company's rep, what is expected, so we can, to the best of our ability, avoid the disappointment of not meeting the expectations. Inform the parties you tender what the early strengths required is, what the durability requirements is, what's the exposure conditions. If we're doing floors, there's abrasion resistance that we have to take into account. There's abrasion aggregate types. You don't want to use dolomites. We can't have high polishing values, those sort of things. So make the expectation clear, and the ready-mix guy will most likely go out of his way to ensure that he has a happy customer. And I think for me, it's very important that in all of this, good concrete is not then being accused of being bad concrete, where 9 out of 10 times this bad concrete that we now have, or this poor quality concrete, is actually concrete that meets or exceeds expectations. So I think I've ran through this a lot quicker than what I anticipated. All of this will save all of us a lot of time and money, and going back and forth and wasting time with site meetings and calling. We can have a good relationship if everybody knows what the expectations are. So all of this is a simple thing in life. If you expectations are met, there is no disappointment. So yeah, in short, make your expectations clear to avoid disappointment. Willie, I think we can ask the guys if there's any questions that I can answer. Yeah, basically, that's mine.
Yes. No, thank you a lot, Martinez. Thank you for putting a bit of time aside and running through this. I think it was very informative. But I agree. Let's give the floor to the attendees and see if there's any questions for you. Yes, Prof, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It was very informative and very interesting to watch, or to listen, or to be part of it. I just got a question about, let's call it environmentally friendly concrete. Your first questions, your presentation was about meeting expectations in terms of quick early strength or high early strength, etc. If I have an expectation of environmentally friendly concrete, let's say I've got that on that's my BMI bonnet, what would the properties of the concrete look like? What would I have to take into account? What do I have to sacrifice if I want environmentally friendly concrete?
Billy, I'm going to sound very stupid, but what's environmentally friendly concrete? Or do we talk green concrete?
Yeah, I'm talking about concrete that, all right, let's talk about carbon emissions, reduced carbon emissions. Let's simplify it to reduce carbon emissions.
Okay, so that's yes. Actually quite a interesting thing. I think it's we call it green concrete. I think there's this whole drive from the rest of the world to produce green concrete or concrete with lower carbon emissions. If you look at both those blended material or concretes that we did that field test on, they both have 50% extender already in it. In South Africa, I think we were fortunate and way ahead of the world that we, in most cases, extend up to 35% already. So in South Africa, I think there's the thing is, if we need to understand exactly what the percentage is or replacement that is required, but also it will come at a cost. If you need to go up to a 50% replacement and you in a place like the Northern Cape, you're gonna have to cart in slagman, and even for that matter, fly ash. So I think to reduce carbon emissions, for instance, it is very important to know what your target is. But in general, in South Africa, because we have the products available, we have the slagman from the steel industry, we have the fly ash from the power stations, the coal that we burn. We've been extending for, I would say, in excess of 30 years already with great success, and because of it, it's a costing thing. It was a costing thing for us, not necessarily durability. Durability, I think, and the carbon emissions is a plus point, which we already have. But I think make sure that the ready-mix supplier know upfront what your extended or replacement value target is according to your project spec or your green bill. I hope that answers.
Thank you. I just want to add on to that one short question. What is the properties of these highly extended concretes? What must I be, if I want highly extended concretes, what must I be prepared to sacrifice or something like that?
Yeah, so generally the higher you extend, the lower your rate of gain is. So you will definitely lose strength. or especially early strength with the fly ashes and the slags. I just want to go back, and I think I can show that on the one slide. If you are willing to wait up to 56 days, we can get away with a lower strength concrete to reduce it even further. So for instance, we could have used this 30 MPa concrete in a 40 MPa structure, and we would have lowered the carbon content significantly. But then again, in our lives, everything is about speed, and I don't think many customers really want to wait the 56 days before they load a structure. They want to load as quick as possible. So yeah, so you will have to compromise time, and time is money. So I think that's, you got to take that into account.
Thank you. Perfect.
So, is there any other questions around the table? You can just raise your hands if there's any questions. No, Martinez, I think you actually did quite well.
Okay, cool. Thank you, everybody.
No, thank you for joining us this in the afternoon, everyone that attended. I hope you all learned something a bit more and enjoyed the concrete fix section. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Martinez, if you can just stay on, and Natasha and Billy. Hi, I can get back with you, Martinez.
Yes. Could you just stop the video, Natasha?